Hey Sarah,
Hey.
I am so excited to have you here today to talk to us all about getting customers. And I wanted to start off just right off the bat with a really juicy question for you. So I wanted to know, do you think that everyone who feels that itch to be self-employed should go ahead and make that jump and quit their jobs and just go for it?
Um, Great question.
It's a hard one, right?
Juicy one. It depends. So I guess that's a no. I think that some people will go jump ahead and do it, and they will sink or swim. A lot will swim. Um, Other people will do a gradual integration to self-employment. Others will try a few things, dip their toe in, try something else, and then go back to employment. And then a few years later, try it again. So it just really depends on who you are and what works for you, really.
Okay. That's nice to know because I did get a few people who have asked that question when I was kind of doing some preliminary, what do you guys want to know from her
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. And a couple people were like, well, is it time to quit my day job? So it's good to know that there isn't a traditional, everybody should go ahead and quit thing. That would be a little scary, I think, for most people.
Terrifying.
Right?
The process
Um,
of becoming self-employed is quite a developmental one anyway. So yeah,
yeah.
the easier we can make it on ourselves, the better, I think.
I agree with you. I'm all for a transition period where you have like a
Yeah,
part-time thing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's my favorite way to do it.
yeah.
So now I wanted you to tell us a little about yourselves, and I'll just kind of set us up.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking today with Sarah Kent, and she is a wonderful, I guess I would call you a business strategist, but you go ahead and use the words that you like to use about yourself.
Yeah, business strategist is good if people understand what that means. Um, I work as a business coach. I became self-employed in 2008, just as the economy went a little bit downhill. So I learned
Good
really
job.
quickly about what worked and what didn't in terms of creating your own business.
Hmm.
And I also learned that what worked for me and what meant that working for myself was a really good way forward for me and how that would work. And I think that, yeah, I'm really passionate about talking about business, about working with people who want to create work that fits them. But I also think that we need to be careful that we do that it is fitting you and it is really working well for you and who you are.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds exactly like what you do. You're very good at talking about yourself. So I'll go ahead and get to more of the questions that I wanted to ask
Yeah.
now that we know what's going on with you. And I will put your website on the screen when I go into editing mode, so everybody will have been able to see, where they can go find more about you and click over to that. And I read your About page, and I would recommend that if you're interested in hearing more about Sarah, to go ahead and read her About page. It's really good, really well thought out. So I wanted to know, Sarah, what should someone do if they're not sure how to start their business? Like a lot of people know what they want to do, but they're not exactly sure how.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's lots of advice around about how to start a business, and I go with keeping things really simple. And Chris Gillenbow wrote a book called The £100 Startup, and what he says is that businesses simply need you need something to offer. Need someone who wants what you have to offer. You need a method of communicating that, and then a method of exchanging the money for the service or the goods. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that just keeps it really, really simple because we can get a bit muddled up with marketing
Oh,
and
yeah.
selling and what you call your business and all those sorts of things. And if you keep it simple, I think there's something that you want to do, that you really want to offer, and it might be a service or it might be a product. And then it's simply finding people who want that.
That sounds really
Um,
simple.
yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't
That's great. I might have to steal that when I'm talking with certain overwhelmed clients.
Yeah, it's just like, well, you just have this and they
This is
want it
really
and you
easy.
exchange it. It's like the olden
Yeah.
days when people had barter systems and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I read something recently that like cows were one of the earliest bartering tools.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
just
I was
traded your cows.
running a workshop and I was saying to a woman who asked the question about well, I like taking photos and I'm scared to offer money for it. And how do I do that? And I was like, well, the value you're giving those people, what's it like? And what do you exchange for it? And what are they getting from what you're giving them? And once she was able to articulate the value that they got, because she took photos of their children at their christenings, and they had the memories and things, and then actually asking for money was simply an exchange. And she said, when I grew up in Malawi, we used to collect precious stones, and we would trade those as kids. And she said that seems the same thing, and it kind of took that sting of the money and business being all scary about it out of it. So I just think it's a nice story.
Scary. People tighten up when you start to talk about how to price things.
Yeah,
and it's kind of, I guess, interesting and kind of endearing. Instead of being so scared of the process, you're kind of endeared to it when you think of it like that.
Yeah,
it's just a little bit calmer. It's kind of nostalgic even, because I remember trading things as kids. It's really interesting. I never thought about that.
And it can be a bit of a game.
Mm-hmm.
Or a game, and also you can play with it. You can hold it lightly and play with it and think, oh, okay, how does this work?
Yeah, that'll make it a lot less scary.
Yeah.
I like it.
Fun.
So what is one thing that would jump that money making, customer getting aspect of being a new business?
Sorry, what was that?
What was one thing that will jumpstart your money making, customer getting aspect of being in business when you first start?
Talking to people about what you have to offer.
Yes.
So talking about what you have to offer, and also listening to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And really asking people about what it is that they would do with what you have, how it would impact them. Sometimes I think it's just trial and error. So if you're creating products, it's creating things and offering them to people and seeing what response you get. And again, with services, it's offering it to people and seeing listening to what they say, listening to how they respond, listening to how they'll use it. And there's a couple of things. There's some systems you can set up where you might offer someone an opportunity to have something for free in exchange for them telling you how they found it or referring it to other people. Mm-hmm. So that's one way of doing it. And the other way is just test it on the market as soon as you can.
Yeah.
So make it and sell it. And see what happens.
So most of my clients are artists, and they do make things. And I think that for them it's a little scary to have made something that's kind of like a baby of theirs, they've nestled it, they've loved on it, and then to just like try to throw it out into the world and have somebody tell them what they think of it, which is kind of that first step, like, what do you think this is worth? Tell me about what this means to you. And getting that feedback, I think, is really scary. Do you have any advice about kind of getting through that emotionally?
Yeah, breathe in, breathe out, and keep doing it.
Move through the fear?
Yeah, and it's funny, because I was thinking about that today, and I know that the way that I've grown my business has been very much like that. It feels like it's part of me, and it feels like it's something that's very precious to me, and what my services I offer feel quite precious, and my clients do. And I thought, there comes a point where you step back from that and see what you have to offer as something that comes from you but is separate from you, and almost have a kind of have a way of separating yourself from the product you've created, and then the relationship that the person who's buying it from you has with it.
Like when you send your kid to school for the first time, like you're sending them off to kindergarten or to preschool or whatever, and you kind of, like, I know you don't want to do it, but you have to. So maybe adopting that mentality of, like, this is a natural step I have to take. Yeah.
So it's sort of growth phase in the creative process, and I think that one thing is it's okay to feel about it. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel that we want to keep hold of that. It's okay to be scared of the judgments that might come from other people, the criticism. It's okay to not want to put value on what we create, all those things. The same as when you send your children off to kindergarten. You don't want to let them go, but it's for the best, for you and your customers that we grow and we generate more creative energy and more things by doing that. And I think
you're giving us permission to feel like that too. I think there's a certain stigma around feeling scared about business. You're supposed to be,
Yeah.
powerful, but
Yeah, and a sort of feeling that if you feel scared, you've got to kind of, harden up and climb over that fear.
Mhm.
And that is really exhausting. And so
Yeah.
it's like, well, whatever you feel is cool.
Yeah.
And which people who know me well will think it's hilarious I'm saying that, because they always say, whenever they ask me about how do you feel, I'm always like, what's that? What do you mean, feel?
You try to remove
we all
it.
get there in the end. So yeah, it is.
So.
It's about just permission to feel those things, and it is scary. Every time we go through a new phase in business, every time we put something new out there, it's scary, and it's part of the part of what makes it doable is becoming comfortable with that, being in those different emotional states, really.
Mm-hmm. And I think that helps you kind of grow and get used to being a business owner, because you're going to feel like that no matter how big you are. You'll feel like that at some point. With everything you do, you kind of get more used to it, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it doesn't matter what phase or what part of the process that people are through. Sometimes I work with business owners who have been in business for quite a while, and they want to be growing, or they're overwhelmed and they want to be doing less, or they really have got to a point where it owns them and they want out in a way, or they want a different way of looking at it. And all the different parts of a business have different challenges and different fears and different growth parts, and that's why I think we're often attracted to it, because it is creative and it is emotional and it is challenging, and realizing that is part of the process.
Yeah, I love that.
Taking really good care of ourselves while we do it. That's the other part.
Yes. What do you do to take care of yourself?
Me?
Yeah.
Eat lots of veggies.
Yeah, that's good. I don't do that one.
A lot. And for me is taking, knowing that I can get overwhelmed when I'm around people a lot of the time. So I really enjoy being with people. I really enjoy hanging out with people, but I can actually find it quite tiring. And so I need time on my own in peace and quiet to recharge. And that for me is one of the most important things, is recognizing that actually, I need lots of time and also time to process information. So I think sometimes I don't look as though I'm working, because I might not be hunched over my laptop, or I might not be writing things down, but actually I might be walking outside processing a lot of things and thinking about what's coming up next, and thinking about my clients and how I'm interacting with those things. And I think that when you work in a creative way, those sorts of things are really important, because often they're not acknowledged. We kind of have that 9 to 5 mentality, or the 60-hour work mentality, that if you're only producing, once you're producing or you're creating income, what you're doing is of value. And I think, to keep our self-care up and to be able to produce and to be able to create income, we need to be able to turn that on its head a bit.
It's interesting that you're talking about that, because I actually went through a period quite recently with my fiance. He's a graduate student, and he's in physics, which is a very heady concept kind of field. And I used to get frustrated with him that I would want him to help out, do something with my dog or help with the dishes or whatever. And I would try to get him to help out around the house, and he'd say, no, I'm busy. And he'd just be sitting there. And I'd be like, you're not doing anything. And it's interesting, because I did finally come to terms with the fact that he has to think and like just sit around and think as part of his work. And I think that that's true for all people, for all working environments. And you just think less of it when you're like an entrepreneur. You expect to be hustling the whole time. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that we sometimes just need to be still, and that stillness will bring ideas, will flesh out concepts. You'll be able to move forward a lot faster if you take the time to kind of back up and chill. Yeah,
definitely. And it attracts people to you as well. People quite, enjoy being around people who are chill.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So I wanted to know, what are some of the roles that you think are easier or helpful to hire out when you're just getting off the ground?
Wow, that's a really good question. Um, I I think it depends on individuals. I know people who hire out a lot of the technical side of things or administrative side of things very quickly. And I think sometimes that can help. But if you're very new to working for yourself and you're very new to any of the technology or any of the processes that you're going through, and if you've not worked for yourself before, even if you've done similar things in employment, it's going to be a whole different ball game. There's a plant. You almost need to go through a bit of a baptism of fire, and so that you have an idea of what you need to know, so that you know who you need to recruit to do what. And which probably doesn't give people a lot of comfort, but I think that it's very difficult to sit back and go, well, you need to recruit that, because I've worked with lots and lots of clients who keep saying, well, I need to be hiring this person, I need to hire this person, and then when they go to hire them, they realise, actually, I'm not really sure what the role is that I want to hire them for, and I need to do that role for a while, and then I've got a really clear idea of what it is. I hire out anything to do with numbers, accounting, anything to do with banking, anything like that.
I hear you on that.
Because it's just not my strength. I need to know what the numbers are, but I don't really need to deal with them apart from that. So that's the bit that I hired out straight away.
Yeah.
And I also hire out my housework, and because I'm not very good at that, and it needs to be done. It's a basic thing that has to be done. I work from home. I'm here all the time. Well, not all the time, but I'm around. It's just a basic thing that I just don't need to think about right now. Eventually, I want to have someone to do a lot more of the admin stuff. But at the moment, I'm happy with what I'm doing, because I know that the more I do it, the more efficient I become. And also, I think that technology changes so quickly at the moment that it's quite good just to have I quite enjoy kind of keeping up to date and just knowing what's going on. I know of people who have who do all of it themselves, do everything, or people who will hire someone to do the hiring. So who will get to a point where they hire someone who will take care of the operational stuff.
I love that.
Again, and the other thing that I hire is support people. So I always have worked with really good mentors, really good coaches, people who are in a supporting role that you might not really think of contribute to your business, but contribute to who you are.
I do too.
And your development and things like that. And I think, that's really important.
I think it's important to have a different eye on your business. And sometimes when you're hiring really specific roles, like a tech person or an admin assistant, they're not always looking, some of them do, but they're not always, depending on what their role is and their personality, they're not always looking at your business and like giving you objective help. And so I think it's kind of important to have someone else doing that.
Yeah, and also helping you or helping us stand back and look at our business from the outside. Having that kind of mirror is really helpful.
Yeah.
And the other part, I know I don't have children, but I have got quite a few clients with children, and that hiring home help or hiring people to look after your children and really recognising that you need time for your business, you need time for your children, you need time for everything else, and you need time for yourself. And so that's an investment in itself. And so, I'm kind of hot on those sort of things.
Yeah, I heard someone recently say that the first thing that she hired was a cleaning lady to come in once a week and just clean her house. And I was like, we don't think about the things outside of our business as contributors to the reason why we're stuck or why we're having trouble finding a balance. And it is sometimes. I mean, it might be, for some of you, it might be the dishes piling up in the sink that you just, you can't handle, and that might be weighing on you enough that you can't get all your work done. So sometimes it's not even hiring a tech person, it's actually, it's not hiring an accountant.
Or someone just to listen to you, to talk through your ideas and help you move on, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so interesting. It's interesting to hear what you hire out too, because we don't talk about it a lot. Like, I think a lot of people kind of, it's a little hush-hush who they're working with. I was listening to an interview today, and this woman that I'm, kind of admire, and she was saying that she has a business coach, and I had no idea she had a business coach. It was just like it came out of left field for me, and I wished I had known about it earlier. I would have kind of felt more of a connection with her. Even I would have felt like she was less intimidating. As soon as she said that, I was like, oh. She needs one too. Okay, she's just like me. She's just like everybody.
Yeah, really, and I think I think that that we kind of we get used to believing that if we need help, there must be something wrong. So you get help when you're ill, and then once you're okay, you're just okay. Then you stop having help, and or you can't. You're earning enough money, or you're full to capacity, and you can't possibly move. Then you can have help. And I think if we think of help as support systems that hold us up and buffer us and, put down a foundation that give us something firm to build from, that changes the meaning of support people.
Yeah.
And it moves away from an idea that actually if we need help, then we're kind of lacking in some way. Whereas, the other thing that I always think is, well, Olympic athletes have help. They have support. People who like jockeys, they have help. They don't. There's so many things they don't do. All they do is ride a horse, which is probably quite impressive. But they have a lot of help, and and we think that we forget that actually that's us as well. And that businesses don't run in a vacuum or on thin air, and that we need those support systems in place.
We're kind of Olympic business athletes.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
I don't know. I just kind of, I think it's kind of nice to think that you have a firm foundation and you're held in what you do, rather than thinking, well, if I was really good at it, if I was, picked for the team, then I could have help. Or it's a different way of thinking.
It is a different way, and I've never heard that analogy. It's kind of. Yeah, I'm going to have to keep that in my back pocket and think about that one a little further, but I like it.
Thanks.
Is goal setting an important aspect when you start your own business? I'd like you to talk about goal setting kind of as a whole, because I'm sure you're going to say yes. But I want to hear from kind of why.
Yes and no. Goal setting is important. I think you need to have an idea of where you're going and what you want to achieve. But absolutely, there's two things I think about goal setting. One thing is that it's really useful for knowing where you're going, and when you're at the kind of action and implementation stage. So, and you want to make sure that what you're aiming for is realistic, that you have the resource available to do it, you have everything in place, and that you have a kind of contained project. It's a way of looking at something and making sure it will get done, because there are steps you can take to get it to make it happen. So I think that's really helpful in that implementation stage. The thing that goal setting can sometimes do is can be very linear. So if we're sort of thinking of being very efficient and just going for the goal, you can miss a lot of information on the way. Okay, so there can be information on the way that might help you in your business. It might help you with your customers. It might help you in all the different ways, because there's so much information we take in our businesses that you kind of almost need to be a bit intuitive and a bit aware of what's going on the periphery. And the other part about goal setting is that I've forgotten what I was going to say. It's linear. The other thing was that it that we can't know. We can't know if something's going to work. Yeah. And we can get into paralysis because we kind of think, right, I've got to do this, and it has to be done by this time, and if I don't have this done, then I'm not going to be able to move forward. And I was reading a blog post today about sales pages and how there's a lot of writing about how your sales page has to be just right and the words have to be right. And I can get so hung up on that. I cannot do something for weeks because I'm like, my sales page, I've got to get it right. Whereas actually, the sales page is the last bit of the process and we don't need to panic about it.
I'm a little embarrassed about how long my most recent guest post pitch, it was literally like 4 weeks after I had it written before I pitched it.
Yeah. And we just get
ridiculous?
A bit, and it's like we just kind of go, I have to do it. It has to be right. And it's that sort of goal setting, this will be right. Whereas if you hold it a bit more lightly and think, well, let's just try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll do something else. And going back to what we were saying earlier about when you're first creating customers and first getting sales, it's the sooner you can get it out in the world, and the sooner you can see if it works or not, the better. And if it doesn't work, it's great to know. It's really good to know, and it's a mistake. You just do a retake, and another retake, and eventually you figure out what works.
Yeah, and then you keep doing more of what works.
Exactly. Yeah. You keep asking yourself, am I having fun doing this, or do I need to be doing something else?
So in that vein, do you recommend business plans?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have, I think you need to have been in business a while, because the way that what your business looks like after a year is just nothing like it looks like to start with. So just don't worry too much about business plans to start with. Yeah. It's much, much more important to be moving and to be doing stuff.
That's good advice. But then once you're like 2 or 3 years down the road, start thinking about doing one?
Yeah, exactly. You've got a little bit of experience behind you. You are more comfortable in your role with your business, and you understand how it's evolving. You understand how you're evolving, and you know how your customers are evolving. And so you've got a bit more to work with. There's something a little bit more concrete there to plan out what you're going to be doing.
And I think that you've experienced enough at that point that you've dealt with that fear of creating things before that you've never done, and creating a business plan doesn't sound quite as daunting when you've been in business a while. Even if you've never done a business plan before, it's a little less scary once you've kind of had some experience doing other scary things. Yeah,
definitely. And I think the word business plan can kind of cause some anxiety, but really all it is just putting all your information down so you've got it on paper and you know what you're doing over the next year or the next 6 months.
What's scary about it is that the corporate world sort of seeps into entrepreneurism. And so, like, an entrepreneur will Google how to write a business plan, and they'll come up with all these corporate business plan models that are for, like, getting investors and, like, really scary stuff that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with their business. And they don't need to use the crazy words and the templates and all that are out there. They can just write down what they want to do and...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and I think when I think of a business plan, I mean, for some businesses, it's just what products are you creating over the next 12 months and when, and what it's more like a project plan. Yeah. So you know what communication has to go out and when, and how your time will be allocated, and how your resource will be allocated, and how your money will be allocated, and what you need to be doing to make those things happen. And there can be all sorts of things in that plan. There can be the non-business things that help you get there. There can be the financial costs and the non-financial costs. There can be financial gains and non-financial gains. And I suppose for me, I look at it in a very kind of whole way, because I think a lot of the people I work with work on their own. They're sold, they work, on their own, and then they usually will recruit a couple of people, or they'll work with other freelancers. So I mean, some business owners I work with have big teams, but it's kind of tends to start off being people on their own, and I tend to work with the business owner and the people rather than the business. So for me, it's about what's happening for the people and then what's happening for the connection. Business. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's easier on the other end too when you're receiving that support. If they're connecting with you as a person instead of just feeling like it's a transactional business arrangement, you feel that emotion, and emotion is always helpful when you're running your own business.
Yeah, it is, and it's emotion that helps. That emotion and that connection is what creates the sales and creates the difference and creates the service. So I think that you've hit the nail on the head there. That we can't suddenly think of emotion as not being part of business and something that we take out of it, but actually it's what creates our marketing messages, at what makes us compelling, at what drives our brands forward, and it's what creates need and
it drives all of our decisions and everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about staying on task. I slip up a lot. You probably slip up a lot too. I mean, I'll be like, I'm supposed to write a blog post or something, and I will like spend the entire night on Pinterest,
Yep.
or something ridiculous like that. Like, is there some advice for staying on task, or is it even important to stay on task?
Um, I find that if it's important, I will get it done. So if I've got 60 people on a webinar, then the webinar will happen. If I've got and if I've got a article that needs to be written to go in a magazine, and that's important to me, the article will be written. It will probably be written at the last minute, and it will probably be a lot of moaning, but it will be written.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got a plane to catch to go on holiday, I will make it to the airport. And I think, yeah, and for me, it's kind of knowing that if it has to happen, it will happen, and what can I do to make it happen? So creating those deadlines for myself is really important. And I think if it's things that I know I really want to happen and are going to make a difference, then you get pulled towards them as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is, I think, it's are we shoulding ourselves into doing it? Should I be writing this? Should I be doing it? And so you're kind of forcing yourself to do something rather than deciding, well, I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Today I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do nothing, or I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do something nice for myself. So it's different strategies work for different people.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that, does it have to be a guest post? Can it be something else? Can it be an interview that you get transcribed and turned into a post? Are we making it into such a big deal that sometimes I tell you one thing that works really well. I do this with friends and with clients, is just have a day or even a morning where you've got to get something done and you won't get it done. Mm-hmm. And just have someone, you say, I'm going to write for 20 minutes and then I'll ring you up and tell you I've done it. And you write and then you ring them, and then another 20 minutes and you write and ring them back in another 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's the one thing I've done that makes me realise that I'm just faffing about and that I can actually do it. There's just resistance. Mm-hmm. So that sort of support's really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important when you're in business, at any stage of business really, to have other people that are kind of doing similar things, even if they're not in the same field. They're kind of also on the entrepreneurial path, and then you can kind of get that accountability and support from them. Yeah, I'm a big fan of masterminds.
Yeah. Recognizing how isolating it is, I think, and how hard it is to motivate ourselves. Yeah,
especially when you start working from home. You get to feel really isolated when you're working from home.
And the other thing I found helpful, which I can't remember who said it, but I heard it on something, is that if you pick 3 things, and it's 3 small tasks, and just decide you're going to do those 3 tasks. And so it might be smaller parts of a bigger project. So it might just be find the information you're going to put in the post, and then lay it all out, and then write a paragraph. And I like the bit at the end where she said, and you have to be pleased with yourself that you've done those 3 things. Yeah. And so you almost like the 4th task is, I am pleased with myself, I've done these. And it sounds really cheesy, but it's so easy to have a massive list of things and do 3 and think, I've got more to do. So I quite like that one. I find that one quite fun.
I agree. I get into that too, where like I'll have my list and I'll finish it and I'll think, okay, what do I have to do next? Instead of rewarding yourself that you finished all the tasks that you had to do. And you should feel a sense of pleasure that you've completed it. And I agree with you completely.
And it's building that habit of feeling that sense of pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes. Well, that's a whole process right there. So where, building off of that idea of accountability, where do you find a support system of other people in the entrepreneurial world or whatever, especially if you're like in a small town or you don't know anybody else that's running a business?
There's I found loads of support online through programs I've done in the forums. Loads of support that way. Colleagues, people who do similar things that you do, you can usually find those through associations and meetups and events. And I found that there are, nowadays there seems to be more and more networking events or groups for people who are starting up businesses.
So if you just like kind of go out there and look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know, there's lots of different things. Some will resonate with you and some won't. And you know, be careful. Think about what it is that you want to get out of it.
That's important. You can sometimes you can get stuck because you'll go and you'll find a group maybe and you feel like, well, I should, there's that should again, like I should spend more time here, get to know these people. But if it's not really feeling right, or you don't know why you're doing it, you might be like not getting what you should be getting out of the
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I found for me that the groups that work best for me are ones that have some sort of content. So there's a learning element. I'm going there to hear a speaker, or I'm going there to learn something. And then inevitably the people there's something that I resonate with them because they're there to learn the same thing. And so both online and offline, I find that. And yeah, again, it is thinking about what you want to get out of it. The other thing is recognizing that people who are doing the same thing or similar things to what we're doing, they may not be our customers. And often they're not our customers. And it's kind of separating those things too. So, yeah.
Well, I like the idea of separating in your head the people who are supportive, accountability, kind of, connections for you versus people who are your customers. And sometimes there's crossover, but I think that if you try to treat the people who are supposed to support you like their customers, there tends to be a lot of like negativity that kind of gets caught up in that. People don't respond well to that. They don't like being sold to when they expect that it's more of an emotional relationship.
Yeah, and it can get quite tricky. And I think that's one of the reasons why having being upfront about how you charge and what you offer and what the exchange is right from the beginning is really important. And that's why I think, especially is being really clear for ourselves as the value that we're putting into what we're creating, the time and energy that takes, and that if we're going to be putting time and energy into other people, are they our customers, and is that a cost going towards our business, or is it something else? Is it what's going on there? Is it meeting some other need? And if it's meeting another need, then that might be great. Or is there another way to meet it? And just being very clear on what your boundaries are and what the relationships are about.
No, that was right. That's good.
Thanks. I suddenly thought, gosh, I'm going off piste here.
So, going on that, do you have advice for pricing things, for putting a monetary value on something? I mean, I know that there's a lot of emotional value and physical value when you're trading the goods, but then you do have to assign some sort of number to that.
Yeah. I think it's twofold. One part of it is the emotional thing. So what is your gut saying, and what are you comfortable with? And, what can you talk about? What do you say out loud? And those sorts of things. And so there's the kind of, the sort of illogical way and then the heart way, where we go, well, I'm really happy to be charging this amount. And then we temper that with everything that goes into making that product. What does that cost? So how long does it take? And how, what is your cost of your labor if you're making it? What is the cost of everything that you buy to make what you're selling? What's the cost of getting it out into the world? And all of those things. And there are so many things that we can probably miss out from that calculation. And again, there's the sort of there's the almost the emotional costs and things like that you think about. And so it's not a formula, but I mean, at the end of the day, you still need to know what the cost of the sale is and what your profit margin is. And if doing it is going to be doing it the way you're doing it with the business model you've got is going to be viable. And the other part, it's the thing, I think the bit that we get stuck with more often is that just coming up with a kind of random amount and then being frightened of the numbers, being frightened of charging enough, being frightened of the rejection around what we're asking for, and all the sort of traps that we fall into. And everyone does it. Doesn't matter how kind of rational you are about it. You can say, well, this is the market rate, and I'm saying, well, why are you charging market rate when you're offering a bespoke service, and you can be charging much more? Or this is what my business area does. Well, and we have lots of rules as to of actually that rule. A lot of it's around the rules of being seen and being judged and being rejected and all those sorts of things. And I think that are the really important things to look at, because especially in creative industries, because what people put into their products are so much more than we often realise. So, what you put into creating something when you're an artist, it's often difficult to put a monetary value on that. But unless you put a monetary value on that, other people won't value it.
I agree with that completely. That's really insightful. I just bought a painting from someone the other day, and she was saying to me, she knows that it needs to go. She knows it needs to find a home, but it's so hard for her to let go of it. She rarely sells her originals because her prints are easy to let go of, but letting go of the original piece is like this emotional tear at her. And she was having so much trouble giving me a price on it because of that. It was just such an emotional experience for her. And I think that we do, artists, have difficulty getting those emotions, no matter what they are. Sometimes it's we hate this piece so much, or we spent so much time making it work, and we just don't even like it anymore. Sometimes it's that opposite feeling. But trying to deal with numbers and money that way when you're feeling all these emotions, it's just so hard.
It is hard, and I think there's a lot of story around being an artist and what it means to be caught up in a consumerism and caught up in charging for what you offer as well. There's a lot of sort of psychology around that. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, you're going to need to make your art, you need to afford to eat and to live.
Yes.
We don't want to live like Van Gogh.
There's a quote going around about that that's like something about I'm an artist, and then they crossed out artist and they said, and it says person, I need to eat.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's interesting because it's not just other people who don't value art. It's not that at all. It's a lot of times it's just that artists themselves are thinking that what they're doing is not worthy of money.
Yeah, and I spend so much time saying this is bespoke. This is something this is art. This is one-off. This is not something that's mass-produced that you can get anywhere. You can be charging a lot more for this. You can be positioning yourself as an artist, and you still need, like any entrepreneur, you still need to stand up and put your head out there and say, this is who I am and what I do, and what I'm making. And from my perspective, it's, well, you might like it, you might not, and that's okay. And if you don't like it, I won't sell it to you. But again, I think with art, there becomes this sort of critique and all those sorts of things that get muddled up with it. And to be honest, with anything we offer, it's the same. Is it good enough? Is it the best? Is it going to win? Yeah. So it can get really tricky. But I agree. I think that, I buy art and I love art, and I like the process of it as a creative process, but I'm not good at it. I just like the process. But I love buying it and really appreciate what people put into it. And it makes it really difficult if people aren't charging what it's worth, because you feel uncomfortable. So if someone is very clear,
you sometimes don't purchase a piece if the artist has priced it too low, even.
And
feel
also
like it's not quality. If they don't value it, how can you value it?
And you lose confidence in them if they don't have, if they're at night say, well, this is what it is, and this is what the price is. So that's me. I kind of like things to be like, okay, how much is it? Good, here we go, I'll pay for it. It's just easier.
I like that too. I don't like the wishy-washy. Well, maybe it's 70, maybe it's 200. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, well, give me a number.
Great. Well, I'm going to end on that really intense note of dealing with money, because I think people will be watching it and they'll be like, oh, I need to pause this and think for a minute about my own pricing. So I think it's time to wrap up anyway. I've kept you pretty long. Skype is telling me 45 minutes. So yeah, that's longer than Sarah and I planned. But then again, we also had trouble getting on this call. We had quite the time. I think we rescheduled like 3 or 4 times.
I think we did, yeah.
And then we got on today, and the tech was being funny, and we couldn't see each other, and the call got dropped. So I'm just happy we had an interview.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah, it's been lovely talking to you too. But before you go, can you tell us your website and where we can find you online?
Yeah, my website's sarah-kent.com.
Great.
So Kent is Kent.
I'll pop that up on the screen.
And I'm Sarah D. Kent on Facebook.
Okay, perfect. We will find you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for talking with me today.